In today's video, we're talking about how this shakeup at PlayStation might actually be really good, if PS Plus's price hike was worth it, and the new PS5 hardware. How's it going, everyone? Welcome to PSReady. I hope you had a great weekend. As far as video games go, I went all in on Alan Wake 2. I'm still very early because I did a lot of like Halloween stuff this weekend, but man, this game looks phenomenal. And I'm happy to say I was wrong about the performance mode on PS5. It looks like even though the settings, like if you compare them to the PC version, are a mix of low and medium, it runs at a pretty hard lock 60 FPS, except for some parts in the forest towards the beginning, which is the hardest part to run on PC as well. So as far as performance goes, it's looking pretty awesome. And as far as the gameplay goes, I think Remedy has done a really good job, kind of like ripping off in a nice way the Resident Evil 2 remake as far as the combat goes. And overall, it feels very refined even compared to Control, which is a great feeling game. So if you're on the fence, I don't think you should be. This game is $10 cheaper than all the other next-gen games we've gotten so far. And unlike most of those next-gen games, this one is next-gen. It might be the best looking game ever made. So $60, digital only. I cannot recommend it enough. Also, when you're watching this video, it's Halloween, so happy Halloween. It's my favorite day of the year. My costume this year is Leon from Resident Evil 2 Remake. I've always wanted to go as Leon, and putting this costume together was super simple thanks to the YouTube channel Hard Mode Enabled. So if you ever want to do any cosplays or anything like that, make sure you give that channel a look. All right, so the first thing I want to talk about today is this continued shakeup at PlayStation and how ultimately I think it's going to be good for us PlayStation gamers. So I'll do my best to keep this brief, but basically the situation at PlayStation is there's a lot of executive shakeups going on, and ultimately at first they seemed like they were a little rough, but honestly the reasoning for these people leaving seems like it's going to be good for us overall. So the first thing to worry about is Jim Ryan retiring in early 2024. Look, I like the guy. I think he's done a decent job, but overall, as far as like my taste in gaming goes, his push towards live service, games as a service, splitting up all the PlayStation studios and making them all make online only games in addition to their single player stuff, I think that was a mistake. I also think just as far as the PS5 goes, a lot of the decisions that have been made this generation I don't agree with. I think games like God of War Ragnarok, even though they can run on the PS4, should not have come out on the PlayStation 4. They should have been on the PS5 to really push people to get the PlayStation 5. You know what I'm saying? I also think things like raising the price of PS Plus, which we'll talk about later, was just a mistake overall. And I don't like the PlayStation Portal. I think it's just a slapped together piece of hardware that's being thrown out into the wild as like a here you guys go. We made a handheld, now shut up and stop asking for one, even though it's not really what people are asking for. Connie Booth, on the other hand, I was like mixed on this because she's been around at PlayStation for like 34 years. She's basically produced a ton of my favorite games, whether I knew it or not, before she left PlayStation. But it seems like the biggest reason for her being fired is because all of the developers at PlayStation are pretty pissed at Sony right now. And from some like reset era posts and tweets from verified leakers, but still take it with a grain of salt, if they want to leave PlayStation, a lot of these studios that have been acquired by Sony, they actually have the capability to do that, which I didn't really know and I can't verify. So again, take it with a grain of salt, but you don't want those developers being pissed at you, because if you look at Sony's history since the PS3, like late gen, they have just released banger after banger. There are a few games that were like critical misses, like Days Gone and The Order 1886. Both of those games have been reevaluated and people really like them. So overall, PlayStation has released some incredible single player games. Their big sore spot, of course, is multiplayer, but they bought Bungie with the philosophy being that Bungie could teach these developers they have how to make multiplayer games. They should just let Bungie make multiplayer games and rake in multiplayer money, and then let the other studios they already have do whatever they want single player wise, because that's what they're good at. We've seen this so many times with developers like, I don't know, BioWare, who made Anthem. It totally gutted that studio and they have not released anything of consequence since, except like Mass Effect Andromeda, and Dragon Age 4 is apparently just a huge mess. Arcane Studios over at Xbox, they were kind of like forced into making a Far Cry style looter shooter in Redfall that basically caused a lot of key people to leave, which isn't great, and we're seeing them make cool indie games like Weird West. So there was some good fallout from that, but overall, you know, when you make these studios who are known for one thing, totally switch gears and work on another thing, it never really works out. That's why Ubisoft is the only other studio who made a live service with The Division. They're the only ones who really figured it out because, you know, Division Studio, massive entertainment, they were made to make The Division. So they like didn't have to totally rebuild their studio from the ground up and rebuild their philosophy. The issue with these departures though is that a lot of these games that were being worked on for the past few years, these live service games, they are being canceled and moved on from, like the Last of Us multiplayer game, which ultimately I think is good. I was excited to play this Factions game because I thought it was going to be like a spin-off offshoot, and now it's clear that the philosophy Naughty Dog was kind of being pushed into, it seems, was that this was supposed to be an extraction shooter with like battle passes and it was going to last forever. And whenever that happens, if it was successful, that's cool on the one hand, but on the other hand, you see the whole studio kind of switch gears and focus on that multiplayer stuff forever until the studio closes. So that wouldn't have been good. There are plenty of other examples of studios that were like incubating multiplayer games, moving on and going back to single player, and all of that seems to be a fallout from these people leaving. But it's going to take years for these games to kind of come out. So where Xbox was at the beginning of this generation, where they just had nothing to put out, there were full years where they had no big first party titles, PlayStation could be approaching a similar spot, which would explain why we don't know what big games we have to look forward to in 2025. There are a couple, but I don't know, man. Like, Sony needs to tell us what we can look forward to, or we're just going to sit here speculating. Now, the silver lining here is that it's not looking like it's going to be totally barren. We, of course, have console exclusives, even though they're third party, with games like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, which is awesome. And allegedly, Sony is going to a tactic which they've used in the past, which is teaming up with Namco Bandai and Sega to make exclusive games. They wouldn't be first party because Sony doesn't own these studios or publishers. They'd be second party, but we've seen this relationship work out in the past, of course, with Insomniac so many times and From Software. So that's a good thing, I think. It's just not great that we're going to have to wait a little bit longer for games from studios like Sucker Punch or a Naughty Dog, for example. They haven't released a new game since The Last of Us Part 2. They've done a remaster and apparently have just spent way too much time on this multiplayer game that we're never going to see. Overall, though, I think this is going to be good because Sony is reorientating and saying, hey, we are good at one specific thing. Let's keep doing that and then buy studios who are good at what we're not. Like Bungie can make Destiny 2 and they can also make Marathon, and that's great, but we could pick up another multiplayer studio down the road that can keep working on new multiplayer games without disrupting what's working with our other studios. Sony has the money to buy new studios, so they should just do that instead of saying, hey guys, totally abandon what you're working on and work on something you've never made before. Because while yes, you know, a broken clock is right twice a day and you'll probably get something good out of one of these studios, the stuff that you're losing is not worth losing, at least in my opinion. And the weird thing is Hermen Hulst oversees everything at PlayStation. He's the guy kind of like saying, hey, these are the games we're working on, first party, here's what our goals should be going forward. He seems like he's doing a good job, but weirdly enough, his old studio, Guerrilla Games, seems to be the only one of the PlayStation studios who figured this out. Ironically, with my most, like, I don't know, I don't want to say hated, I almost said most hated, my most like ignored franchise, Horizon, instead of making a multiplayer game themselves and splitting their resources too thin, they went to a multiplayer studio and said, hey, build a Monster Hunter game in the Horizon universe. And the same thing happened with their VR game. They went with Firespray instead of doing it themselves. I don't know why other Sony studios can't do the same thing, but it looks like that's what they're going to do going forward, and that's good. So maybe Hermen Hulst, I was a little too hard on him, saying that I'm a little iffy on the Guerrilla connection, just because I think Horizon, out of all of PlayStation's franchises, not the best one to sink all this money into, but you know, it's his call, and ultimately I think he's doing good stuff if the future of PlayStation turns out as it seems like it's going to from all these rumors, leaks, and announcements of people leaving. Anyway, hopefully you stuck around for that deep dive because we also have to talk about some PlayStation hardware that's coming out, and that of course is the new PlayStation headsets, which are launching very soon. All right, so this is actually very interesting to me, not because of the headphones, but mainly because of the PlayStation Link adapter. I did not know this was going to be sold separately, but I am like crossing my fingers that it's going to work on PC, kind of like the Xbox USB adapter, because if you use a DualSense on PC wirelessly over Bluetooth, your odds that it's going to work with any given game, I'd say are like, I want to say 50-50, but really they're 30-70, like 30% chance it'll work on a game wirelessly. So I have to keep this long ass USB-C cord plugged into my computer at all time. I've been playing Halo Infinite with the DualSense and it's awesome, but yeah, I want to know if this PlayStation Link wireless adapter is going to work with my PC and with the DualSense, because if I can throw that thing on, connect my headphones and my controller controller to it and have a good stable connection where it'll work with games, that's awesome. All right, so the pre-order for this stuff goes up on November 9th at 10 a.m. on direct.playstation.com, you know, the PlayStation Store, which honestly, I've had a great experience with. They do 2-day shipping. They don't charge a lot of extra fees and stuff like that, so I have no problem ordering from them. The difference this time around is that all these products have different release dates. All right, so the Pulse Explorer earbuds are coming first on December 6th alongside the adapter. The adapter is going to be $25. That will come out on December 6th as well. And then the Pulse Elite over-ear headphones, you'll have to wait until February 21st. That's kind of a bummer. I wish they were releasing these all on the same day as a baseline, but also I feel like if you ask PlayStation fans which one of these headsets they want more, the over-ear headphones would be the clear winner. So having to wait all the way till February when you're pre-ordering in December, that's a pretty big gap to ask people to spend a lot of money on these headphones for. Also, these headphones were both marketed alongside the announcement of the PlayStation Portal as like the perfect add-on for them. So I guess that's why the earbuds are coming out sooner, because with the PS5, of course, you'd probably want to use the Elite over-ear headphones. But I think with the Portal, you can make a good argument for the earbuds. It's still weird that they're coming out that much later, right? Like December 6th is 2 weeks or so after November 15th. So if you want to use some good wireless earbuds with your PlayStation Portal, you're going to have to wait a couple weeks to get them. I'm still rocking the InZone H7s and I really like them. I want to know how much better or worse the Elite headset is going to be, because I like the look of the Elite headset more than I like the look of the H7. So we'll just have to wait and see. Obviously these things are going to be kind of expensive, but it is cool that Sony's branching out the PlayStation official accessory line. They kind of have to this generation because of all the bespoke features of the PlayStation 5, but it is still good that they're doing it. I'm wondering though, are you picking up any of these headsets or the adapter? Let me know in the comments below. I'm really curious about the adapter. I'm going to keep bringing it up and hopefully they send me one maybe. I don't know. And the last news story I want to talk about today is Sony has been defending the PS Plus price hike in a weird way that kind of like, it feels half-hearted, right? Like it doesn't feel like they actually truly believe that it was a justified upgrade, and I'll just let you decide for yourself based on their statement. So for some context, back in September, there was a big price increase pretty much across the board for PlayStation Plus. Essential went from $59.99 to $80 a year, and PlayStation Plus Premium went from $120 to $160 a year. So instead of Jim Ryan doing this interview because he's retiring, PlayStation's senior vice president just did an interview and he went on to defend this by saying, "We want to make PlayStation Plus great. With our reboot last year and introducing the tier system, a lot of consumers have recognized that there's a lot of value in PlayStation 5. Like practically everything else in the world, we have to look at our pricing and we have to adjust to market conditions. I'm happy to say, unlike a lot of other subscription services out there, we haven't touched the PS Plus pricing for 85% of the world in many years. So this is the first time we did something there." All right, this is tricky wording. I kind of agree with him like 50%. Back when this happened, I defended the PS Plus Essential, specifically price hike, because it hadn't gotten one pretty much ever. I think when it came out, it was $50 and it was not required on the PS3, and then on the PS4, they raised it to $59.99 and made it an online requirement for the PS4. Whatever, they give good bonuses, good sales, and you get good games every month. I thought it was reasonable, but it's been a very long time since they upgraded the price, if at all, so that made sense. But increasing the price that soon on PS Plus Extra and Premium, that's where I feel like it was a little egregious. They increased the price by a wide margin on both of those tiers, and as you go up in these tiers, it becomes less worth it to pay them all that money in the first place, so I didn't really feel like they were justifying that price increase on Extra and Premium, and I still don't. I think it's cool that they added in game streaming on Premium, but I mean, most people aren't going to do that, because if you want to play your PS5, you're going to play it on your TV. If you want to play handheld games, you can pick up a Nintendo Switch or a Steam Deck and have just as good of a time. I mean, on the Nintendo Switch, you can't play Sony games, but on the Steam Deck, you can. Regardless, it really sucks how much it feels like prices have gone up on everything over the past couple of years, whether you're talking essentials like bread and milk or like gas, of course, for people's cars. That seems like it's gone up a ton, and maybe it's come down a little bit, but like over the past few years, it used to be a lot lower than it is now. And then when you look at entertainment, everything is increasing across the board there too, whether it's Netflix or Disney Plus, now PlayStation Plus, and even the cost of games going up to $70. It really is putting a big strain on a lot of people. And when it comes to entertainment, it's like, suck, man. Like, I want to play PlayStation to escape how much more expensive everything else is in my life, and to see the prices so gradually rising all over the world, and especially when you look at the Series S, it got like an insane price hike in Brazil lately. I don't know, it's hard to defend. It really sucks. I just think Sony's nickel and diming people here. So yeah, they can defend that price hike all they want. I don't think it was justified. You're never going to convince me it was. And the same thing goes for the PlayStation 5 console itself. We saw a lot of discounts this year on the console in other countries, but you always had to keep in mind that the console itself got like a $50 to $60 price increase earlier. So they were just discounting it back to what it originally cost. And that makes it hard to celebrate that discount at all. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching my economics driven episode of PS Ready. I hope you're having a great Halloween. So if you have any costumes, tweet a picture at me at Jimmy Champagne. I'd love to see them. Anyway, guys, let me know what you're playing down in the comments below. Remember to subscribe and set your notifications to all if you haven't already. As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching, and shape on.